This video is brought to you by YTAndrewPaul Tech Repairs. If you have a console, laptop, computer or Macbook in need of repair in the UK or the EU, then have a look in the description below this video for details on how to contact us in order to organise your repair. Right, okay ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. And today we're going to be taking a look at this SAA-001 revision PS4 motherboard with a 5-pin PSU connector. And as you can see, the connector on this board has been unceremoniously ripped off. So we're going to have a look and see what we can do to repair this. We have 5 pins, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and 1, 2, 3 still seem to be intact, but 1 and 2 here. These 2 here seem to be completely missing. These 2 are ripped off the board. If we take a look, we can see that there's a big hole there. There's nothing underneath. It's just the fibre substrate of the board, unfortunately. Now then, there are a couple of tiny little bits of pad left down here, if you see. A couple of really tiny bits. One there and one there. I don't know if we'll be able to get anything onto those. We'll have a go. So, of course, the idea is that we want to restore these boards with doing, as little as we have to them. The more of the infrastructure of the board we can use, the better off we're going to be. So what we're going to do, we're just going to apply some fume extraction to the board here. So hopefully it's not going to get too noisy for you. And we're going to apply a little bit of flux to the pads with the solder on. We'll clean them off. If we can find the desolder blade, we'll clean them off. That's going to be the best thing to do, I think. So this one, I don't know really at this moment in time how much damage is done. Obviously we can't fire the machine up. We can't power the machine up to test because we can't get 5 volts into the board. Seems to be something stuck to that pad, from what I can tell, unless it's lifted up slightly. I'll have to have a look at that, but that pad isn't coming flat. There's something behind it. Like I said, whether it's partially lifted out of the board or not, I'm not entirely sure. We're going to have to give this a clean off. So from this point of view, then we should be able to see what we've got actually here to work with. As you can see there now, that bottom couple of pins there on the right hand side are absolutely buggered. So let's take a look and see what's going on here then, because you can see this little ripple here. It's almost as if that pad's not flat. You can see there's a little fissure in the top of the conformal coat there. Now as it is, this pad here looks like it's ground. It looks like a ground pad because it comes into here. You can see it comes into this big area. All around here and all around here. Leads up here. You see we have these vias here which carry power from the 5-volt rail. Those are isolated from here. And you can see it goes all the way around the board. So I believe that that is ground. So if we get a multimeter onto that pad, we should be, well, I believe we should see ground there. So let's take a look. Is that a ground pin? It is indeed. We get less than 1 ohm, so that's nice to know. It would appear that these 2 here are related to the 5-volt rail, are they? So yeah, they're not ground. Yeah, so I think these 2 are 5-volt. That's ground. And then who knows what this is. Appear this one's ground as well. And this one's a data pin. Okay, so that kind of makes sense because you can see here, look, this same pad here leads into this area as does this one. So we may not need this pin. This pin may be redundant. This one here, you can see, goes to this via. Okay, so this pad here would link to the back side of this trace. You can just about see a little piece of copper sticking out from underneath here. So this pad would link onto there, and then it would go through this via and down to the other side of the board. So that's where I think that goes. Obviously, because there's no material here to connect this to this anymore, that's not going to be, we're not going to be able to solder to this. So we're going to have to run a replacement bridge wire for this pin. It is a data pin, so it's not carrying any power, so we don't need any massive wire. We should be able to use some fairly thin enamelled wire to repair that. This via, though, is going to sit beneath the connector body, so I don't think we're going to be able to actually get the pin and run it around the back, so we're going to have to find where this via goes to. The ground plane here, like I said there, that one appears to be ground, which makes sense because, as I say, this pad leads into the same area as this, and these two pins here are inside this dark green border area here and back onto the 5-volt supply cap. So it looks like these two pads here are 5 volt, looks like these two are ground, and this is a data line. So what we're going to do then is we are going to find our location for our via, because that's really the only thing that we're worried about at this moment in time. So I am just going to scratch back the via it's connected to. So just doing this with a Stanley blade, I'd recommend you use something like a fiberglass pencil, to be honest. It tends to be much safer. If you are going to use a Stanley blade or something with a sharp edge to it, then please be really careful, because you can cut through them. And if you cut through them, then yes, you are in a world of trouble, potentially. So do be really, really careful with them. We have a good portion of our via there now exposed. So what we're going to do, just going to drop a little bit of IPA on there just to get rid of any fiberglass filings, because they are very sharp, they stick in your fingers and they hurt like hell. So you definitely don't really want to be doing that. So what we're going to do then is, we know that the 12 volt connector is just here. So when we flip the board over, we're going to look to just to the side of this connector, and we're looking for two vias that come up just to the opposite side of it. So let's just see if we can spot where those might come from. So as we flip it over and we're looking at it, the vias are going to be on the right hand side. So here's the 12 volt connector pins, just here. So we're going just to the right hand side of those. So we're looking for two in a line. That might give us a clue. We can see we have 4 here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And those are probably roughly in place, probably just about where we're looking to go to. And that links into this little circuit here. So we can see we have a little cap, a little resistor, a couple of little resistors even, and this pad here. So it may be that we can link to somewhere in there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pop a dab of IPA on there, because it looks a little bit dirty. Doesn't look the cleanest in the world, looks a bit tarnished, a little bit dull. So let's just see if we can brighten that up a little bit. Okay, so what we want to know is whether we can solder our bridge wire, our link wire, to one of those two positions. So we can see here, look, that this via comes up here, it runs to this pad and then to this large metal test point. And we also see the via at the other side here comes up onto this pad and goes across this capacitor to this resistor and up. So that does look as though it's, relating to a data line circuit. So let's take a look over the leaf then. Let's turn it back over and see which one it's likely to be, whether it's likely to be left or right. So let's go back and see if we can find our vias. Okay, so it's going to be, we can see the 12 volt connectors here. So it's going to be, yes, you see, because you can just about see the 2 holes from the 2 next door. So you got 1, 2, and then those 2 next door, 3, 4, you can see there. So it's going to be the one nearest the 12 volt connector. So it's going to be the one, by my reckoning anyway, There's the 12 volt connector. There's a little piece of the circuit we were looking at. So by my reckoning, it's going to be the first one in. It's going to be the one here. 12 volt connector. It's going to be this first pad here, which links onto this test point. And that would be a really nice place to be able to solder it to as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to put one probe of our multimeter onto the via on the bottom side of the board. And we're going to put our other multimeter probe on this test point here. If they beep, then we've found where our via runs to. So I'm not going to be able to do this on the camera, unfortunately, because it involves me standing the board up, obviously, so I can get to both sides of it. But I'm going to have one pin on the via and one pin on the test point. I'm going to come as close to the multimeter as I can so you can hear this. Hear the beep? And that's less than 1 ohm. So that means that our via, on the underside, we have continuity there. That means, therefore, that is indeed where our test point runs to. Fantastic. So we know where it goes. So that's the main thing. So we know we can solder to that big test pad. Excellent. So what we're going to do now then is we are going to see if we can get the connector back on. Now, the lad did provide me with the connector, so we took off. So let's just see if we can find it. Okay, so here's the connector, and we can see that it's still got a couple of pads. Oh dear, well that connector actually is buggered. As you can see, we have 3 pins, and where 4 and 5 should be, they're actually missing. Now, unless they're in the bag. Unless they're in the bag. And I can't see them. No, I can't see them. So the connector is buggered. So we're going to have to remove the connector from a donor, which is always fun. So let's see if we've got any 5-pin connectors anywhere. Do I have any 5-pin boards kicking around I can lift a connector from? 4-pin, 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 4-pin. Now here's a 5-pin. Lovely. Okay, so we've got one. So here's an SAA-001 board with its connector intact. So we can have that. So what we're going to do then is we're going to apply a tiny bit of flux across here and across here. And what we'll do is we'll add some leaded solder to the legs of the connector. Okay, so we're going to add some leaded solder to this connector now to ensure that we can get it off. Okay, so what this is going to do is this is going to enable us to be able to get this off a little bit easier, because of course by default this has lead-free solder on it, which is a real git. So we're just going to add some more some more leaded. Should encourage the connector to come off a little bit easier. Just going to work it back and forth into the joints. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get our air wand. Now then, the important thing is here, we are not going to direct heat straight onto the connector because we'll melt it. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the heat indirectly. So we're just going to go to the side of the connector, to the side of it. So we aren't aiming the air at it, we're aiming the air into the board. And we're just going to wait. So we're going to be patient. Okay, as you can see there now, connector comes off. Excellent. So you might get a little bit of blackening of the plastic around the base of the connector, but that's just par for the course, really. There's not much you can really do for that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, as long as the connector itself, the body of the connector itself isn't melted to the point where you're going to struggle to get the cable in, it should be fine. So like I say, you might get a little bit of blackening around the base. That's just par for the course. That's fairly normal. And hey, I've managed to pick my connector up with the flux syringe. So what we're going to do then is we're going to pop a little bit of solder onto our connector pads. You don't want too much because this is going to make it difficult to reseat the connector properly if you put too much of this on. You just want a fairly basic coating. I'm going to try and pin this middle pin up here and see if we can bridge across to it. There's no point in doing that one, unless of course you want to try and secure it. So I suppose we could try and do that. Try and add as much strength to the port as possible, I suppose. So we're just going to get our connector now and hold it. We're going to come back in with the hot air. And we're just going to try flow these points in. Okay, those are the front ones. Or the back ones in. Let's go for the three at the front. Okay. So that's looking okay. So we're just going to pop the air wand away in for a moment. Do you know, every time I try to record one of these videos at the minute, the guy next door turns up on his bloody moped. Every time. It's almost like he knows. Anyway, so what we're going to do, we're just going to try and reflow these joints. So you'll notice our front right pin is soldered. We're just going to encourage it back into position. Just going to finish things up by tacking it in nicely. There's a tiny, this end pin here is relatively close, so we're just going to try and bridge down onto it if we can. Again, that's not going to provide any connection to that pad because the via is at the rear and there's nothing to connect the front side of the pad to the back. But what we can do is it will just add that tiny little bit of extra strength to that pin, because obviously it needs to be anchored in place. And we can see there now that that little sliver of a pad at the front there is now connected, nice and solid. The middle one we've managed to connect to the front side of that pad. albeit it was ground anyway, but that's irrelevant. We've done the back one, the right hand side one there. That's nice. That one, of course, was intact anyway. So we're not worried about the middle pad of the 3 there at all now. Okay, so the back two are actually in place, and look, absolutely fine to be perfectly honest. But we'll just finish them off anyway. So this one, in the end, probably won't end up being too bad. I remember the first one we did on the channel with a 4-pin on the SAB. Bloody hell, that was a mess. I'll pop a link to that in the description if I can think on to do so. Because that one actually had a shorted 5-volt power rail as well. Because when the connector had been pulled off, it had actually pulled the layers of the board together. Yeah, that was a nasty one. But as we can see there now, our connector is in place. Our pins are soldered. Our connector is nice and solid, which is excellent news. So all we're going to do now is we are going to run our repair for our missing pad there on the front left corner. That's this pin here. So what we're going to do then, we're going to find where that... We're going to find a location where we can actually put the wire through to the opposite side of the board. So I'm just thinking where's best to do that, because obviously we don't want to foul up anything. So this is the back side of the motherboard, if you like. So this is the area where the power supply is going to sit across. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to be going through anywhere that's likely to upset the seating of the power supply, because obviously that would be bad. So what we're going to do is, and I'm just trying to think here which would be more pertinent. I'm just going to go and look and see which hole is going to line up best for us here, because there's a couple of holes in the bottom corner which we can probably use, but I'm not sure on the face of it which one it is that's going to be most useful to us. Okay, so looking at it, we're going to go for, this is the bottom corner, we're going to go for this hole here. So that's where it's going to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to find our pin. There we go. We're going to strip back a little piece of wire. So this is enamelled wire, so it looks like it's bare, but it has an enamelled coating around the outside edge, so it isn't actually conductive until you strip it. And the way you strip it is by dipping the end of the wire in some solder on the end of your soldering iron, and it strips the enamel away from the wire and actually allows you to use it to solder things. So what we're going to do, we're going to run our wire, oops, we're going to run our wire from here, okay, so we're going to change our soldering iron tip for a second, okay, just going to add a tiny little bit more solder to the wire. Okay, and then I'm going to come in a little bit on the iron. Try not to knock you all over the place while I do this. Okay, so that wire is now nicely stuck to there. So I'm just going to cut a length of this wire off. To be honest, I've cut far too much, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. And what we're going to do, we're going to try and keep this as flat to the board as possible. Okay, so we're just going to route it with our tweezer blades. Okay, so we're going to route the wire from there. We're going to go around the back of the 12-volt connector. Okay, so we're keeping things as flat as we can. Alright, so that to there. And then we're going to come around the side of the 12-volt connector. And then we're going to go down through the other side of the board. So before we actually do anything else, what we're going to do is we're going to get some PCB overcoat pen. This stuff is fantastic. Again, if I can think on, I'll put a link to this in the description as well. You can get this from Amazon, you can get it from eBay, or Farnell, Element 14, anywhere that kind of does PCB soldering supplies. We'll stock this stuff. Paid 20 quid for that pen probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it's still going strong, so excellent news. Okay, so we're just going to try and encourage that into position. So what I'm going to do is, it does cure in the air, but I'm just going to try and help it along a little bit here. So we've got 20 litres of airflow at 120 degrees on the air wand. And we're just going to come down here and just try and get this thing to cure up a little bit quicker. My finger's in the way and I'm now getting burnt because, of course, 120 degrees to your finger is still very, very hot. So it does take about 10 minutes in the air. But like I say, if you can come in with the air wand, you can help it out a little bit on the way. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come down a little bit further. We're going to go through the other side of the board. So to do that, we're just going to feed our wire through the hole we've picked. Okay, now that may upset your wire back here, so if it does, just seat it back down. Okay, so we've done that now. So we're just going to flip our board over. And we're going to pull this wire tight in a sec. So our wire comes through here. Okay, you can just about see that there. So we're going to pull it tight across the board. Okay, and we're going to pull it to where we want it to go, past the 12-volt pin. And of course, we're going just above where my finger is. So we're going to there. Okay, what we're going to do, we're just going to mark that with soldering iron. Okay. So we're just going to tin the end of the wire. Okay. So we have that tin now. What we're going to do, we're going to come back on the board, and we're going to get rid of the solder that's on the existing solder that's on the test point. We're going to apply a tiny bit of flux to there. We're going to come back in with the iron. We're going to put some leaded solder on the pad. Okay, and then we're going to come back in with the tweezer blade. Or your finger, whichever you prefer, really. And we're going to solder that pin down. And of course, as before, we're looking for this to be fairly flat to the board. out of the way of any of the screw holes, things like that. So you can see there now, our wire is relatively flat. Okay, we're connected into our new point there. So what we're going to do, we're just going to get a little bit of isopropyl on the end of a Q-tip or cotton bud, depending on which part of the world you're from. And we're just going to run over the surface of where we've been, just to remove the last bit of any flux residue there. Do the same as we did with the board on the other side. We'll just pop a little bit of conformal coat over the wire. Just to make sure that nothing catches. Nothing goes through the wire, for example. I mean, if you'd like and it makes you feel better, you can pop a little bit of sort of like electrical tape over there, you know, just to be doubly sure nothing's going to catch the wire, for example. You know, if that's what you want to do, then it wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm just going to come back in with the hot area and just try to cure this a little bit faster for us. To help it along the way. So we're just looking for this to start to harden. Okay, quite happy with that. As far as its positioning goes. Okay, lovely. And we're going to do the same with the wire on this side as well. So we'll run some conformal coat over the top of here. Again, just to ensure that, you know, nothing's going to chafe or anything of that nature. Oops. Trying to paint the connector. Okay, and that should be okay. That should be fine. But I'm going to try and get the bit in the middle. Okay, so I've got the bit in the middle, so I'll show you that in a second. I have to adjust my angle of attack slightly. We've done that now. So, okay, hopefully we're ready for this. Here we go. So, we can see here, look, that's our wire. We have it all gooped up there now. Excellent. We'll just clean this little bit of sort of flux residue off around where the connector is. The flux, by the way, is Amtech NC559 V2TF. Likewise, if I can think on to include it in the description, I will do. Okay. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. So that should now be fully reinstated. So I don't know what issues this console was having and why somebody was stripping it, whether it was just to clean it down, whether it was just to, because it is quite clean inside, so whether somebody's just cleaned it up and what have you, I'm not entirely sure. But as you can see there now, that's all looking rather nice. Just got a little tiny hole in our conformal coat there, and we'll just pop some more down there. Okay, so that should do it then. So what we can do now is we can put this board back in its chassis. We'll fire it up. Now let's see if we get any results, if we get any joy. If we do, fantastic. So bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. We'll put this machine back together and let's give it a test. Right, okay, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. So we have our machine pushed together here. Okay, we've put a few screws in the bottom of it just to make sure that the wire, etc., is going to be okay with clearance. Should be, but as we can see now, we've everything hooked up, and the tripod has returned. Look, both my hands are free. Wow. Okay, okay. When was my daughter's birthday? May. So, yes, it's been 3 months without a tripod. Anyway, there we go. So, fired it up, and as you can just about see there, look, we've got a blue light just above where my finger is. And there we go. Everything's back up and running. Fantastic. Well, there we are. So what have we done today? So today we have repaired this 5-volt connector on this PS4. Bit of a problem with it, in as much as obviously it was completely ripped off and it had a couple of missing pads. So it had, luckily one of them was ground, although we managed to bridge it across anyway. But it had the data line, which tells the power supply to provide power from the board. So effectively that's where the power signal comes from when you touch the button. That pin was completely missing, so the board would never been able to tell the power supply that somebody had attempted to turn the machine on, hence the machine was completely dead. So that's a bit of a problem. Likewise, if you'd have offered a disc up, that same power on signal goes through that pin and it was completely missing. So without that being present, we would never have been able to get power to our machine. So what we did was we prepared the motherboard to accept our replacement connector, because obviously our original one was broken. And what we did from that point is we lifted a donor port from a otherwise faulty board. We have reinstalled that connector to the board. We have repaired the broken ground connection. And then, of course, what we've done is we've been able to trace the missing pad via the via through to the other side of the board, and using the multimeter we've been able to decide where that goes. We've been able to find a suitable point to run our repair wire to, and then we've been able to find a suitable route through the chassis of the machine so that we can actually run our repair wire safely through to the other side of the board without crushing it during reassembly of the machine. And as we can see there now, look, we have our machine back together more or less, and everything's fired up and it's there and sat on the dashboard, so it's ready to go. So this can go back to its owner and everybody is going to be happy. So thank you very much for watching here, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, then feel free to pop a like down below. That's the big thumbs up button if you can. That helps me out massively, ladies and gentlemen, if you can do that. If this has proven useful, or like I say, you've enjoyed it, and it's filled 20 minutes of your time, or however long this has turned out to be, then yeah, that would be fantastic and you'd really help me out with that. Likewise, if you have any questions, then feel free to drop a comment below. I try to pick these up as regularly as I can, and if I know the answer, then I will happily provide it to you. Also, likewise, if you are in the UK or the EU and you're in need of a repair of your own, then feel free to drop me an email. It's YTAndrewPaul@outlook.com. The email address is in the description. I know I keep saying this, but the website is coming soon. The last couple of weeks have been really, really hectic, and I just haven't had time to get the last few bits and pieces done on it to get it up. But hopefully, at some point this week, I might be able to get to do that. We offer components and bits and pieces for PlayStations, Xboxes, Macbooks, all that sort of good stuff. Likewise, if there's something you need now before the site goes live, just drop me an email and I can help you out. We can ship those things worldwide. So unlike the repair services, which are UK or EU only, the component supply side of things we can ship them wherever. If you're in America, great. If you're in Barbados, great. If you're wherever you like, we can help you out with that. So thank you very much. Likewise, if you want to drop me a private message on Twitter, you can do. I'm there at YTAndrewPaul. If you tweet at me, I may not see it, because to be honest, I don't really tend to use Twitter for much other than DMs. and following Leeds United journalists and things like that. Of course, we've had a cracking start to the season. I'm really pleased with that. But yes, as far as actual sort of looking at tweets and mentions go, I don't really understand how you use Twitter, to be honest, outside of the DM side of things. It's just not something I've ever sat down and it's just too difficult to sort of see who's tweeting you from where. And so if I do occasionally look, but don't be offended if I don't see it and don't reply to you on there. So yes, so if you do want to reply on Twitter, then you're best off dropping me a direct message. My inbox is open to everybody. You don't have to follow me to drop me a message in there. You should just be able to do it. So yes, so thank you for that. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it useful. And if you have, I will see you on the next video. If you haven't already subscribed, of course, then feel free to do so. That would be great as well. And ding that little bell icon and you should be able to be notified whenever we upload a new video as well. So that's quite a cool feature. If you are a first time viewer, then feel free to check out the other videos we've got on the channel. We have quite a few now. We're approaching 100 videos and most of them are fiddling around with things like this. So if this is, like I say, of benefit to you, we've got a PlayStation 4, Xboxes, Macbooks, a couple of iPhones on there. Not that I really work on iPhones, but you know. So yeah, we've quite a bit on there. So feel free to have a browse through and enjoy and while away a few afternoons of boredom if you have them by watching my boring crappy videos. I don't know. Anyway, so so thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you shortly on the not too distant future on the next video. So for me, for now, it's bye-bye. Hope life treats you well. And yeah, that's it. Many thanks for watching then, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not check out these recommendations below. Also, please remember to comment, rate, and of course subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. We've plenty more content on there, and there's lots more to come.